In ancient Assyria, the wrong veil could bring severe punishment. Middle Assyrian law treated the veil as a protected social signal, and some women were forbidden from wearing it. Yet another woman on that same street was expected to cover her head. Same city, same piece of cloth, opposite rule. And if a man saw the first woman and kept quiet, the law could punish him too, the same number of blows, followed by a month of forced labor. She was not punished simply for wearing a veil. She was punished for wearing something society said she was not entitled to wear. They wore the same veil, only one of them was breaking the law. That points to a much bigger difference between ancient clothing and a modern men's or women's rack. Clothes worked as a code. What could people read in them that we can no longer see? Open a museum collection of ancient dress and keep scrolling. The first thing you notice may be how similar it all looks. An Egyptian tomb painting shows a length of linen wrapped around a body. A Greek vase shows a rectangle of wool draped and pinned. A Roman relief shows a tunic, belted into place. To modern eyes, these outfits do not signal gender as bluntly as a department store rack does. There are no sharply split silhouettes, no obvious his cut beside a hers cut, just cloth, arranged around standing bodies in familiar ways. That makes more sense when you remember where clothing begins. Before jackets, fitted bodices, tailored trousers, or anything cut close to the body, there had to be woven cloth. Cloth was expensive. Cutting it into many shaped pieces created waste. A rectangle could be wrapped, pinned, folded, belted, adjusted, reused, and fitted to more than one body. A simple garment shape does not mean a society failed to notice gender. It often points to a clothing technology built around costly fabric, reuse, and flexible construction. Take the Greek chiton. Someone stepped into the cloth, fastened it near the shoulders, arranged the folds, and belted it into shape. Men wore chitons. Women wore chitons. From a distance, the shared construction can make the difference seem slight. Move closer. Women's chitons were often longer. Men's could end nearer the knee. A worker or athlete needed room to move. The ceremonial dress asked for something different. Age, region, occupation, and status changed what looked right. The same cloth could produce a different silhouette without becoming a whole new kind of garment. Rome presents the same issue from another direction. Tunics were everywhere. Men wore them. Women wore them. So did workers and people of rank. But the sleeve length changed. Hem length changed. Belts and layers changed. So did the garment worn over the tunic. The clothing underneath could belong to the same broad family, while the social message around it changed completely. Egypt makes the picture messier still. Ornament, linen quality, wigs, jewelry, and status carried plenty of meaning alongside the garment itself. Two people could wear clothes built from similar geometry and still present very different identities. That is why unisex gives us the wrong idea about ancient clothing. It makes it sound as though the difference barely mattered. It did. The difference just was not always packed into one obvious garment category. If the basic shape does not tell us enough, where does the rest of the information sit? Look at the picture again. Give yourself 5 seconds. Look at this figure and decide what the clothes tell you. Almost nothing? Fair enough. Now slow down. An ancient viewer was picking up details you probably passed over. Length. This hem stops well above the ankle. 2 panels over, another hem reaches the ground. That is not a decorative difference. Before you know anything else about either figure, it is already telling you something. The belt. Where it sits, how tightly it is pulled, and whether there is one at all. That is another layer of information, read on top of the first. Hair and what covers it, bound up, loose and visible, wrapped entirely out of sight. Each choice adds another fragment to the sentence. Jewelry, fabric weight, who else is in the frame, and what are they doing? Context is not background noise. It belongs to the reading. None of this denies the obvious. Faces looked different. Bodies looked different. Voices sounded different. Nobody in the ancient world needed a belt buckle to tell a man from a woman at close range. Clothing was never the only thing carrying that information. But it was one channel, and it carried a lot. Put 5 or 6 signals on one figure: length, belt, drape, hair, ornament, context, and the image changes. 30 seconds ago it looked blank. Now it reads like a sentence, and you can begin to follow it. You are not looking at one clue, you are reading a sentence. And gender is not the only word in it. That cluster of signals did more than separate men from women. It could sort several social categories at once. In some settings, gender was only one of them. Think of clothing less as decoration and more as an identity card that nobody had to ask to see. Now use that same system on the veil. Gender is part of the answer, but legal status is the point of the rule. Middle Assyrian law did not use the veil as a blunt sign meaning woman. It drew a sharper line: women of a social position entitled to veil, and women whose position did not allow it. The veil was doing 2 jobs at once. It marked gender because it belonged to women's public presentation, and it marked status within that group. Anyone who knew the rule could read both in a glance. That is why the punishment matters. The law defended a visual hierarchy. The woman was not merely putting cloth over her head. She was claiming a place in the social order. Rome played a similar game with different garments. The stola was not simply what Roman women wore. In periods when it carried that meaning strongly, it was associated with a respectable married citizen woman. A woman outside that category could be read differently even if much of her clothing looked familiar. The toga worked in the other direction. It was a large piece of fabric, but it carried citizenship, public identity, and male status. On the right body, in the right place, it told people something about a man's legal position before he spoke. Citizenship has no shape, marriage has no color. Legal freedom does not grow on the skin. Rank is invisible until a society gives it a sign. Once people agree on that sign, clothing can make those invisible categories readable across a room. Assyria and Rome show this most clearly, but they are not the only examples. Early Chinese court dress could show rank through regulated textiles, color, and ceremonial presentation. It did more than make one official look richer than another. Dress helped place people within an ordered hierarchy. Indus Valley figurines preserve jewelry and adornment that may point to regional or social identity beyond sex. We cannot read those objects as precisely as a surviving law code, but they suggest that ornament itself carried information. Maya murals offer another glimpse. Rank, occupation, and ceremonial role appear alongside gender in how bodies are dressed and arranged. Clothing belongs to a larger visual grammar: who stands where, who serves, who commands, and who fits into the scene. Nok terracottas offer a more cautious clue. Their hairstyles and ornaments survive in striking detail, but the surrounding evidence is too thin to decode those signals with the confidence we have in Assyria or Rome. They widen the pattern without having to carry the whole argument. Put that together, and the original question begins to seem too small. We started by asking how clothing helped people tell men from women. But ancient viewers might have been reading several things at once: gender, rank, marriage, freedom, citizenship, occupation, ritual role, belonging. The garment may look simple. The code was not. Then the balance began to shift. Instead of carrying so much meaning in the way cloth was worn, some garments began carrying more meaning in their shape. Everything so far has been about how a shared or closely related garment was worn. Now the construction itself starts to matter more. In the dry ground of eastern Central Asia, at a site called Yanghai, archaeologists found the oldest well-preserved trousers on record. They date to roughly the late 2nd millennium BCE. They look surprisingly familiar: 2 separate legs, a broad crotch section, and a garment built to let each leg move on its own. Put that on someone standing still, and it is plainly practical. Put it on a rider, and the reason becomes clearer. A horse changes the clothing problem. The legs need to spread around the animal. The fabric has to endure repeated movement against the saddle. The rider needs protection without losing mobility. That gets us close to the original pressure behind the garment. Before trousers became a gender symbol, they answered a movement problem. But a useful solution does not tell you what people will eventually think it means. That comes with adoption. Horse riding feeds cavalry. Cavalry feeds warfare. Mounted warfare creates institutions, ranks, prestige, and political power. In many societies where trouser-like garments spread through those systems, the riders, soldiers, officers, and rulers most visible in them were overwhelmingly male. The garment picked up meaning from the people who wore it most publicly, not because male bodies somehow required trousers, but because male institutions kept putting trousers in view. Even then, the association did not harden overnight. In the Achaemenid Persian world, long robe-like court dress existed alongside fitted legwear, associated with riders, and with different peoples within and around the empire. A man could look powerful without trousers. A trousered silhouette could still read as foreign, military, regional, or practical, rather than simply male. Later, Parthian and Sasanian dress made fitted, trousered silhouettes much more common in elite and everyday life across parts of the region. The change was uneven. Older prestige forms did not disappear the moment newer ones became useful. China gives us an even clearer example of how awkward adoption could be. In the 4th century BCE, King Wuling of Zhao wanted stronger mounted forces. Northern peoples were skilled horsemen and archers, and their clothing suited that kind of fighting. So Wuling promoted Hu-style riding dress and mounted archery. The military case was strong. Culturally, it was provocative. His officials were not arguing over whether fitted riding clothes worked on horseback. They were dealing with what it meant for a Chinese ruler and his soldiers to take on the appearance of neighboring peoples. That is the important part. A better garment can still feel like the wrong one. A practical reform can look like cultural surrender. Clothes can solve one problem and create another. Wuling had to force the reform through because dress carried identity as well as function. That tells us something about the wider shift. A garment does not become normal just because it works. It becomes normal when institutions, powerful users, and repeated public exposure make a new silhouette feel legitimate. Once that happens, construction becomes a faster shortcut. 2 separate legs, a fitted sleeve, a shaped bodice, hose, breeches, trousers. Now the viewer does not have to read only belt, drape, veil, ornament, and context. The shape of the garment starts doing the talking. Once societies assign those shapes to different kinds of bodies, crossing the line is much harder to miss. Assyria already showed that clothing rules could be enforced brutally, but the rule being policed there was different. The law decided which category of woman had the right to wear a particular sign. Later, another boundary could harden around the garment itself. The question was no longer only who had the right to use a veil, color, or ornament. It could become whether a woman wore clothing assigned to men, or a man wore clothing assigned to women. It is a subtle shift, but it matters. The signal has moved. Earlier, the code might sit in length, veiling, layers, ornament, or permission to display a particular sign. Now, the garment category itself can become the accusation. By the medieval period, a biblical prohibition on cross-dressing had become a formal concern in Christian legal and theological tradition. Joan of Arc's 1431 trial sits within that world. Her clothing was not the entire case against her. The trial was political and religious, bound up with her authority, her military role, and the threat she posed. But male dress was not a decorative footnote. She wore men's military clothing while campaigning. She kept wearing male clothing in prison. The court questioned her about it again and again. After she formally submitted, her return to male dress became part of the prosecution's claim that she had relapsed. That is what makes the case useful here. The clothing mattered because everyone involved treated the category itself as morally meaningful. A woman in men's clothes was not merely dressed in an unusual way. Her clothing could be read as disobedience, disorder, or refusal. Later testimony from her retrial makes the picture more complicated. It suggests guards may have removed her women's clothing before she was found in male dress again. That makes the supposed relapse far less simple than the prosecution made it sound. So even here, the garment does not work alone. Prison conditions, power, religious interpretation, and politics all shaped the case. But the clothing category gave those pressures something visible to seize. Centuries later, the same instinct still appeared in the Paris Municipal Code. Women had to seek official permission before dressing as men, a rule that remained technically on the books until 2013. We told that story in full already. It's the video linked right now, if you haven't seen it, because it shows how long this category could last. By then, nobody needed to inspect the drape of a tunic or decode where a veil sat. The garment could announce the boundary at a glance. The older system never vanished, though. It simply gained one very loud new word. Walk into a clothing store today, and the divide can look absolute. A men's section, a women's section. Separate racks, sometimes separate floors. It can look like the clean binary the ancient world never quite had. Look closer, and the older grammar is still underneath. Fit, hair, jewelry, shoe style, neckline, color, the accessories someone chooses, the setting they are in when you notice them. None of that disappeared when trousers and dresses arrived. One loud new word was added to a sentence people had already been reading for thousands of years. Now look at this again. Look again. The length, the belt, the hair, the veil, the ornament. It no longer feels empty. It reads as a sentence because, over the last few minutes, you learned some of the alphabet. Before trousers meant man and dresses meant woman, people did not see less gender. They read it in more places. The strange part is that we still do. Clothing was only part of the language. In some societies, what sat on the head could communicate even more than what covered the body. That is the next thing worth reading.